Okay, so let's dive right in. You know the image of David, right? The perfect man, the absolute icon of the Renaissance. But the real story, the one we're gonna get into, doesn't start with a flash of genius. Nope, it starts with a huge block of broken, abandoned stone that everybody had given up on.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle. We're going to peel back all the layers of myth and legend to get to the incredible true story of a masterpiece we only think we know, from a piece of junk rock to a timeless symbol of what humans are capable of.
And this quote from the man himself, this is the key to the whole thing. It tells you everything about how he saw the world. Michelangelo truly believed his job wasn't to create something, but to liberate the perfect form he could already see trapped inside the stone. Where everyone else saw failure, he saw a prisoner waiting to be set free.
So how did this all start? Well, before we can even talk about the artist, we have to meet the real hero of this story, a giant, flawed, and what everyone thought was a completely impossible piece of marble.
Now this was not just any old stone. This thing had been sitting in the workyard of the Florence Cathedral for decades. In fact, it had already defeated two other master sculptors who tried and failed to do anything with it, leaving it even more busted up than before. They nicknamed it the Giant, and honestly, everyone thought it was a hopeless cause. Let's just break down what he was up against, because it was basically a list of reasons to walk away. The block was way too thin for a normal statue. It was full of cracks and weak spots. A previous artist had already gouged a massive hole right between where the legs should be. Oh, and the plan was to put it on the cathedral roof, 80 meters up in the air. Every single thing about this project screamed failure. So who in their right mind would even take on a project that was already a famous failure? Well, enter a kind of brash, unbelievably talented 26-year-old artist named Michelangelo David, who was riding high off the success of his sculpture, the Pieta. You know, despite being celebrated as a master, Michelangelo was a deeply tormented guy. His nose had been broken in a fight when he was young, and he was really insecure about his looks. And you can't help but think that this personal pain is what fueled his obsessive, lifelong chase for just sublime, godlike perfection in his art. He couldn't fix himself, but he was going to make sure his David became the definition of beauty forever. And the way he worked, it was on another level. See, other artists would make little models and carefully measure and mark up the marble. Not Michelangelo. He worked mostly freehand, with this intense, obsessive focus. He said he could literally see the final figure inside the stone, and he just chipped away everything that wasn't David.
And here's where the real genius kicks in. Michelangelo didn't fight the stone's flaws, he used them. That narrowness that everyone complained about, it's the reason David's head is turned to the side. And that giant hole between the legs, that's what dictated the famous elegant S-curve pose. The stone's problems became the statue's greatest strengths. Every single problem became a brilliant solution.
But look, as incredible as his technical skill was, that's not even the most revolutionary thing he did. His real innovation, his true stroke of genius, was all conceptual. He completely reinvented the character of David, turning him from a simple Bible story into a deep psychological symbol. See, before Michelangelo, every statue of David showed him after the fight. He's always the triumphant kid standing with Goliath's severed head at his feet. Michelangelo decided to show the moment before the battle, and that changes everything. It's not a story about victory anymore. It's a story about the courage and the intelligence you need to face a giant in the first place. And you can see it when you look closely. This isn't some relaxed hero. This is a man who is thinking. And yeah, he's anxious. His brow is furrowed, the muscles in his neck are tight, his nostrils are flared. He's sizing up his opponent, calculating the odds. He's going to win with his brain, not just his strength. And that was the ultimate Renaissance ideal.
Okay, so the statue is also packed with these amazing hidden details, brilliant calculations, and anatomical secrets that just show you what a true master Michelangelo was.
So a lot of people noticed that David's hands and head seemed kind of big for his body. Well, that wasn't a mistake. Remember, he was originally supposed to be way up on the cathedral roof. Michelangelo was a master of perspective, and he knew that from 80 meters down on the street, those exaggerated parts would actually make him look perfectly proportioned. All right, here's a question that comes up a lot, and the answer tells you so much about the time period. This detail was not an oversight. It was a very deliberate, very symbolic choice that gets right to the heart of what the High Renaissance was all about. It all comes back to the ancient Greeks and Romans. Michelangelo was all about reviving their ideals of beauty. And in their world, the perfect nude male body was, well, perfect and unaltered.
So to make David the ultimate symbol of beauty, he sculpted him in that classical tradition, placing a biblical hero right into the humanist worldview of Florence. Okay, but this next detail is it's mind-blowing. If you look at David's neck, you can see his jugular vein is bulging. That only happens when someone is agitated or tense. Michelangelo carved this from direct observation. We know he dissected bodies, and he got it perfect, over 100 years before scientists would even formally describe how blood circulation works. I mean, how incredible is that?
So, after working in secret for 2 years, Michelangelo finally unveiled the statue in 1504. And the city committee was so completely blown away by its perfection that they realized the whole plan had to change. The committee, which, funnily enough, included his rival, Leonardo da Vinci, agreed. There was no way they were sticking this masterpiece on a roof where no one could see it. It had to be at the center of everything. It took 40 men 4 whole days just to move the 6-ton statue half a mile to the city's main square. And with that move, David went from being a religious figure to a powerful political icon.
And just like that, the statue's meaning completely evolved. Florence at the time was this small republic, always being threatened by bigger, more powerful enemies like Rome. So David, the young hero taking on a giant, became the perfect symbol for their city's own story of courage, intelligence, and defiance. And has that power faded? Not a chance. Take a look at this number. Over 2 million people. That's how many went to the Accademia Gallery in 2023 alone, just to see this one statue. 500 years later, he is still a global superstar. So in the end, you realize Michelangelo wasn't just a sculptor, he was like an alchemist. He took a broken, rejected, flawed piece of stone that everyone thought was worthless, and through his own obsessive genius, he transformed it into flesh, bone, and a timeless symbol of the human spirit.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. Michelangelo's statue gave the city of Florence a permanent symbol of its highest ideals: intelligence, courage, independence. So it makes you wonder, right? If we had to choose one idea to represent our own time, to immortalize for the next 500 years, what would we think is worth carving in stone today?